Welcome to MBSR Orientation Online. My name is Dr. Patty Shutt, and I am one of the facilitators at the Sacred Treehouse that teaches MBSR, and I will be your guide today. Myself and Nikki Davis, Dr. Nikki Davis, are both highly trained in MBSR, both through UMass and UCSD. We both fell in love with mindfulness in different ways at different times and came together both to teach MBSR and to facilitate other mindfulness programs at the Sacred Treehouse. So just a little bit of history of MBSR. MBSR was founded in 1979 by John Kabat-Zinn at UMass Medical Center. And since that time, there have been thousands of research studies showing the usefulness, the benefits of mindfulness, specifically MBSR 8-week training in relieving many different physical and emotional issues. There are thousands of MBSR graduates in hundreds of centers throughout the world, in medical, psychological centers, health centers, yoga studios, and we have begun to see the impact of mindfulness in every area of our life, not just in our medical and psychological programs, but also in business, in schools. Many studies are demonstrating benefits with so many different issues. I know many people who have studied with me over the years have come really as prevention, which is unusual. Many people come to this program and training because they're in some sort of emotional, psychological, or physical pain or are suffering in some way. So it's interesting to see now people really understanding the benefits and coming out of prevention. So we both formally trained both at UMass and UCSD, and this training really allows us to provide for you the consistent and reliable program and the outcomes that were found in the studies. So what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is our natural capacity to be present in our moment-to-moment experience. I love the John Kabat-Zinn definition, and he says mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. So mindfulness really requires all of these things, that we're actually attending, that we have this focused attention, that it is with intention. So on purpose, we're directing that attention to something in the present moment. And we are suspending judgment. There is a way of knowing and being in the moment with just what is. So we use mindfulness really as a tool as well to ground in the present moment. We can use it to become aware, and in training in mindfulness, we become aware of internal sensations. So we train in sensing the body, emotions, thoughts, memories, attitudes, and moods. We also develop awareness of external experiences. So this ability to pay attention to sights, sounds, smells, and tastes. And ultimately, as we practice mindfulness, we come to understand one of the universal teachings of impermanence, this recognition, and it's really not an intellectual thing, but we come through mindfulness to really know and deeply understand and experience impermanence, that all things change. Everything is changing moment to moment. Mindfulness is about being and not doing. So even though it is a practice, and there's a small element of doing the practice, It's really about paying attention on purpose, acknowledging and allowing your experience to be the way it is, even if it's not pleasant. So we cultivate this ability to be with something, for instance, let's say pain or discomfort, which we often want to push away. It's natural for us to want to resist, to push away, deny. And what we know is that when we meet pain or discomfort with this resistance and pushing away, it actually adds to it. It creates suffering. So, in some way, through this ability to be and just be with pain and discomfort, by being with it without the resistance, so as we allow it, we decrease suffering. What we are then left with is the pain of the reality. And it is with this, just the pain of the reality, that we are much more capable of coping, of cultivating resilience, and in many ways, problem solving to create a better situation. This ability to be with what is can lead to cultivating greater compassion, self compassion. It can also open us up to new possibilities. It can help guide us towards taking wise action. This slide is demonstrating all of the attitudes that we're cultivating and bringing towards our practice of mindfulness. And these are important things that we're cultivating throughout the class, this ability to let go, deepen our trust, opening up to beginner's mind, this way of seeing things as if it's a first time, which is really a letting go of our preconceived notions. Practicing in a way without striving, cultivating patience, non judgment, as we mentioned, and also bringing acceptance to what is. So, I'd like to guide you in a very brief practice. So, if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. If not, just find a place for your gaze to simply rest on somewhere in front of you, allowing yourself to settle. If you're sitting in a chair, maybe placing both feet on the floor and getting as comfortable as you can. You can certainly lie down or stand up, whatever position you're in, just allowing the body to settle and still. And as you come to this position, you'll hear the bells ring. Simply inviting you into a practice in mindfulness. Now, beginning to move attention, moving the mind and all your attention like a spotlight, and focusing it right now on the breath. Allowing all attention to simply follow the natural flow of your breath. Noticing there's no need to do. The body knows how to breathe. You simply become the watcher, the observer. Really, the now sensing the breath as it moves in and out of the body. Perhaps noticing the sensations in the nose as the air moves in and moves out. You may notice the sensations created in the throat as you sense the breath moving in and moving out. Perhaps even noticing the expanding and contracting of the chest and the belly. That slight movement as the breath moves in and moves out. The body gently rocks, and letting go of any striving, trying to breathe in a certain way. Just settle, let go, and simply notice the natural flow of the breath flowing in and flowing out. You can choose a certain place where you sense the breath the most. And just like a spotlight, focusing all attention there for just a few moments to see if you can sense the changing sensations. And if you'd like to just simply rest there, allowing and accepting the breath just as it is, just this breath. Thank you for joining me on this short breath meditation, just to give you a taste of what a mindfulness practice may be like. And so I'd like to just share a few of the benefits and risks of MBSR. And this is important in determining whether it's something for you and or is this the right time? So of course, allowing and making space and welcoming our experiences can bring feelings of sadness, feelings of anger and fear that were already there. Often people feel like it brings it on, but really they're there. And they can seem stronger because we're now paying attention to them. We're no longer resisting. And so we do this slowly. There's lots of support, and we sort of, the practices build on one another. So often people really feel a sense that they can continue and bring, be with emotions as they come and go. And then we extend it longer and longer, and people feel stronger and more capable. Often, if people have a history of trauma, abuse, or addiction, that they can feel a sense of heightening of these emotions and these reactions. Once again, because we're really opening. This is a practice of opening and allowing, and so it can be a wonderful way of healing. But there needs to be some readiness and some support and the ability to navigate that. You may make discoveries about yourself. Sometimes there's things we don't like. I like to think about these. It's sort of like our inner demons, right? We become aware of some of the things. Maybe they're thoughts, emotions, things that have been pushed away or so deep. Um, but that's okay. We learn to really welcome those as well, and the practice is one in accepting whatever there is. So this can be, it can sometimes be unpleasant, and yet it really is healing and helpful. Sometimes you may be challenged, and find yourself really facing the sense of like unknown when we start to let go and release some of our habitual ways of of doing, 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 right? We can sort of open up to this more wide open spaciousness. And for some, that can be scary, but ultimately, it is freeing. It also can be a challenge to set aside the space and time to do this practice. So it's really important if you're considering this to really request support from family, friends, coworkers, um, really having childcare set up, and really having a private space if you're doing this virtually, where there aren't going to be any interruptions. That you can give yourself this time and space, and that you have the support from your loved ones. It can be incredibly helpful to begin to see our patterns of reactivity, our behavior, and communication, and how this changes. You may even, your family and friends and coworkers, um, sometimes are really uncomfortable with the new you. They're surprised or shocked. They don't know. They can't really sense who it is. And sometimes, it's so interesting to see that they're the ones that notice before you. Um, so it's quite interesting to see the transformation and how this evolves for each individual person. Your relationship with yourself and others may change. So, this is really a way of really coming to deeply know and sense ourselves. And so we can see sort of sometimes it can help people in many ways finally tune in to what they need and want. Sometimes it allows and gives permission for someone to start to take care of themselves in ways that they've denied before. So it's important if you're considering this that you really recognize that taking the class is really the tip of the iceberg. It's really the practice between classes that is going to make the difference. So there is a home practice set up daily that you'll receive guidance on. And so you need to really create a consistent time of day that you're willing to give this practice, both creating space in your calendar, space in your home, and using a timer might be helpful to really let you let go of watching the clock. So we give suggestions for ways to do that. So I'd like to really touch on some of the benefits of mindfulness practice, and it may be really why you've come to even consider this. Maybe someone recommended it for one of these reasons, or you've simply heard about it. One is obviously in the name, mindfulness based stress reduction. So there is an enormous amount of stress reduction. There's a reduction in the symptoms of anxiety, depression. Um, Studies have shown lower levels of cortisol, a decreased reaction in the amygdala, and lower blood pressure, which are all these stress reaction, this activation in the body and the emotional system. And so, with practice and sustained practice, we see a reduction in this. And we also see, of course, increased focus. So, as I guided you earlier in this practice of focusing, perhaps you noticed your mind wandering over and over. That is normal. And so, with practice, the practice is actually bringing it back to the breath. And the practice isn't just focusing on the breath. So if you found yourself wandering, the wandering is part of the process. And the bringing back is the training. And so as we continue to do that day in and day out with our practice, we're going to see increase in focus, greater attention, much better cognitive processes. We're going to see an improved awareness of the present moment. Sometimes people report like, you know, the flowers are brighter. The food is tastier. This sense of like just more wide awake. We also see an enhanced executive functioning. So there's literally changes in the brain that studies are showing. as our neuroscience is starting to catch up with this age-old training, that there's cortical thickening that leads to integrating the brain and creates faster information processing. It also improves fluid intelligence, working memory. So if you're taking this course for performance enhancement, this is going to be something that you're going to be very interested in. Another thing that we're seeing is improved well-being. So we see that actually among people that there's a strengthened autoimmune response. So we're seeing better immune systems, and that you can see that there's a relationship with that, with the decrease in stress and all of the stress reactivity. So as that goes down, the immune system is stronger. We see better emotional regulation. We also see a decrease in impulse control and an increase in pro-social emotions and behaviors. Um, People feel more connected. They feel more of a sense of motivation, connectedness to each other. So we see relationships improve. So, some of the logistics for taking our course. So, our next course is offered in the evening, Wednesday evening, 6 to 8:30 p.m. And there will be a full day retreat during the 6th week, which will happen on a Saturday or a Sunday. So, we'd like you, since our virtual class will be on Zoom, that you arrive 5 minutes early. Ordinarily, if you were taking this class in person, you would arrive about 10 minutes early because it takes a little longer to get settled in the room. But we'd like you arriving online by 5 minutes till, and preferably 10 minutes till the first time. If you have questions, you can email me, Dr. Patty, at sacredtreehouse.org. If you're going to be late or unable to attend class, this is really important. If you know this ahead of time, then I get that sometime that day, because we will be taking attendance and we may be thinking that you're arriving soon. So it's helpful if we know ahead of time. Even though there will be no scheduled breaks, there are certainly natural transitions where we move from practice to practice for you to use a restroom. And so often we'll point these out, but they'll become, um, you'll notice when we end a practice that we're taking a few minutes to settle. So it might be a time for you to pause if we're online, to make sure you're muted and your video's off, and make a quick um, exit to the restroom, or taking water or something that you need, and coming right back, not getting caught up in what's happening in the house or work. So, in class, a little bit about what we're going to be learning. We're going to be learning many different forms of mindfulness practice through guided practices. One is called the body scan. And this is really cultivating that mind body connection, that sense of really deepening our connection with our body, feeling and sensing and focusing attention. And we'll also practice a sitting. So you'll learn sitting meditation and all the supportive tools that you need. And we'll do mindful eating and some mindful movement, which is not a yoga class. Anyone can do this no matter what. And walking meditation. So, what we expect along our journey is, um, the hope is, by taking the class and doing the practices, that you will begin to cultivate the habit of mindfulness. So it will move from this sort of focused, practiced behavior into more of a habit. You'll be learning about stress, exploring behavioral, physical, emotional, and cognitive stress patterns, reactivity, and really coming to know yourself and what your patterns are, and then cultivating more skillful responses to these patterns. We also will be learning mindful ways to communicate, so how to bring mindfulness and this way of being into relationships. And also hoping to choose nourishing behaviors, activities. So making greater mindful choices in our life. A few important details is, as I mentioned earlier, about making sure you set up a private, uninterrupted space. And if you're virtual, you may really want headphones that will really help you drown out any other noise. Um, and having pillows, blankets, chairs, cushions, whatever you need to support your practice. For both will sometimes be lying flat on the floor, so maybe a yoga mat, and often we'll be sitting and sometimes walking. Really wearing comfortable clothing so you can transition maybe from the floor to a chair easily. We ask that people respect confidentiality and that anything that's shared through the practice or during home work sharing, that people respect each other's confidentiality. Your materials will be emailed weekly for the virtual class, which will include the home practice. And the home practice can range from 30 to 60 minutes a day, typically a 30-minute formal practice with some other mindfulness practices sort of woven throughout your day. So, if you're uncertain about whether MBSR is suitable for you, it can be helpful to reach out to one of us, emailing us any of your questions, concerns. That would be helpful. And if you're convinced or you've done enough research already and you'd like to go ahead and complete the registration forms, feel free to do so and email those to us. It is important that you send those materials to us as soon as possible. So I look forward to joining you on this MBSR journey, and feel free to reach out.